So we are starting our last presentation for today. Anthony Ralston from the AR Educational Technology Incorporated, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Is presenting a contribution entitled Teacher Training Capacity Development in Blended and Online Pedagogy in the Maldives. So the floor is yours. I'll alert you 5 minutes before the end. And please go ahead.
Give me a microphone or?
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining, and those of you online joining as well. This is a presentation on a project that's been in the works for many years, but I thought this might be an interesting way to look at some of the challenges and some of the realities of designing instruction and delivering instruction in an online and virtual and blended environment. As some background, my background is in education in academic organizations, universities and colleges, but over the last 12 plus years, I've been working with the United Nations in different countries, developing education and training for them. So I think it's an interesting position to be in, working with different United Nations agencies, that the subject matter is quite varied. It can be anything from, as you're going to see today, teacher training, through to the International Atomic Energy Agency, which deals with nuclear energy. So there's quite a broad range of topics that I get to work with. As part of the presentation, what I hope to do was introduce some polling, some live response polling. So I do have a couple of poll questions, so that when you see the prompt come up, you'll see the instructions for it. So, and this is available as just on any browser, on any device, so those joining virtually can do this. You simply type in the first web address, pollev.com, followed by the instructions there, my name plus 567, and then you'll be prompted to go to the first activity. So those are the instructions. I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes just to navigate to that. And the idea is to indicate your title or profession, so that I have an idea of where people's backgrounds are. I mean, obviously attending today, I have an idea of some people that I've met, but it would be nice to get some idea of your background and the kind of work you're involved with. And this is just a word cloud activity that I created. Instructional designer, perfect. And so my intent with this is, when you come to the end of the presentation today, regardless of your background or the kind of work you do, you might be able to take away something new because of the, I guess, the diversity of the presentation. I'll just wait another minute or so, because there's there's a series of 3 questions here that I'm going to be asking people. I'm using, by the way, I'm using the software called Poll Everywhere. I love Poll Everywhere. I use it in a lot of not only face-to-face, but virtual environments as well. I like the fact that you can use it on any kind of device, and you don't need to install an app. It's sort of that simple. So I think, just for the sake of time, I'll move on to the next. I know we have more than instructional designers here, but educators, yes. Okay, cool. I think for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next. I'm asking where are you traveling from, and I'll explain why. Why am I asking this? I mean, it might be of interest, but from an education design point of view, it's quite relevant. I'm based in Canada, but I work exclusively in other countries around the world. So even though I'm based in Canada, I don't actually work there. I'll just give it another couple of minutes for this. What we're going to be looking at today is a project with Unicef in the Maldives. And obviously the Maldives is a series of islands off the coast of India, probably most renowned for beaches and, you know, beach huts and things like that. So for the sake of time, I'll probably move on, but I think it's important to note that when I took this project on, I had to consider the geographical location. So that was part of my, I guess, the needs assessment. And it sort of figures prominently in a lot of the projects that I do because there are different geographical locations. And this is just to give me an idea of where, in your perspective, where delivery modes fit within your organization. And so it's a way for me to get that information as we're doing the presentation. This is also part of, you know, what I would be asking a UN agency is how do they currently deliver training, most of which falls into this with maybe a little bit of online. So they are, many UN agencies are very new to this kind of delivery. So as I said, for the sake of time, I'm just going to roll through and talk about this particular project. And when I started this project with the Maldives, I was reminded of the fact that I'm based in Western Canada, but I have worked on dispersed learning or distributed learning in the Yukon and Northwest Territories. And I realized that although the geography between the Maldives and the Yukon is quite different, it's quite similar in that you have the need for some sort of delivery of alternate formats of education, whether that's face-to-face plus online or cable television, for example, smart boards, for example. So there was that particular need. And when I traveled to the Maldives and worked there for a number of times, and I explained this to the teachers I was working with that, look, I did this project, or I've been working on a project in the Yukon, and there's a university and a college, and they need to figure out how to deliver their learning online to dispersed, students and campuses, which they found interesting, but they were more interested in hearing about grizzly bears and polar bears and things that happen in the Yukon. So I took some of the methodologies and some of the technology concepts and applied it to a different environment, obviously the Maldives, who have some interesting challenges in terms of delivering education. They are a series of atolls or islands, each with, we'll call them K-12, but they refer to them a little bit differently. So they have schools on different islands that all tend to work independently, but there is a need for centralization so that they can work with the Central Institute for Education in Mali, which is the capital of the Maldives. And when I first started working with them, the issues they were running into were prior to COVID. Then obviously COVID appeared, and their challenges changed, and it was an interesting project to be involved with prior to COVID, and then post-COVID as well. This started, I guess, in 2017, working with them to come up with a strategy, a policy for delivering online education, blended learning, and also teacher training. So, as I said, dispersed schools, teachers at different levels of competency with educational technology, different levels of teaching pedagogy. And they had, teacher resource centers. They had educational technology tools and the need for literacy, not only pedagogical, but technological. professional development implementation plan, and professional development in terms of certification programs. So all of this work took place from 2017 over a couple of years, with me working there on site with them, working with their teachers, coming up with a professional development certification program that included how to deliver online, how to run synchronous sessions. So there was technology and pedagogical needs as well. If we fast forward, some of the other aspects that they needed to look at was a true blended methodology for teaching and the professional development that would go along with that. I won't go through this whole list, but probably the smartest thing they did was down here, IT infrastructure. They through assistance through Unicef and other organizations, they rebuilt their IT system and put in a strong infrastructure that related that information so that the island schools could communicate properly with the main schools in the main city. And that was really the best thing that they could have done, because that was just before COVID. And obviously COVID came along and they had the IT structure to deal with that. So I think that saved a lot of this pre-work that was done could then go ahead. Jumping forward to 2021, as I said, they had the IT infrastructure. They had a real need for teacher training, as not only pedagogical, but the technology aspect. And so obviously, not being able to travel back to the Maldives, I worked with them virtually. So this is just a quick poll to think about the words that relate to challenges when delivering online or synchronous training. And if we don't have time to fill it out, that's okay. Because there are specific challenges that came about working, not working remotely, but teaching remotely to that particular part of the world. And I'll get into that in more detail. Engagement, huge for sure. In my case, I was lucky in that I had worked in the Maldives and met a number of teachers and trainers. So I had that connection, and that's very important in that culture. So going from that to then working remotely, that helped quite a bit. But it was the teaching online, so the virtual or synchronous teaching, that started to pose a lot of problems. Time and or difference. In this case, it was cultural. It didn't have anything to do with IT. As I said, they had really bolstered their IT aspects. Cultural, yes, for sure. So the premise was over a 4-month period to train a total of 350 participants, all the way from principals, teachers, they call them teacher trainers there as well, professional development trainers, and in multiple languages. So obviously, multiple languages such as these are not my proficient. I don't have those proficiencies, so I was able to work with teachers there that when I was presenting online, they would translate into other languages for me, and we were able to kind of navigate our way through that. The reality became very apparent to me that oh yes, there was a 12-hour time difference between where I live and where they are located in the Maldives, which was, I could navigate that. I had a presenter who was also a teacher. I had a technical producer who was also able to translate into their local language. But it was a reality of audio only and this is all through Google Meet. So Google is their kind of go-to technology there. No webcams, and each session was 2 hours, which was recorded. So the reality became that as a culture, they're extremely respectful, but they're very quiet. And so in a virtual session like this, I would be, going through portfolio-based learning or something to do with technology, and it was quiet. And there weren't any questions, and I couldn't see them because there were no cameras. I turned my webcam on so they could see me initially. And some of the people that I had worked with on the ground there recognized obviously who I was, and there was a bit of a connection. So this started to pose some interesting challenges. The first, and I'll get to the solution of the challenges in a minute. The first session included 25 trainers. I won't go through all this because I know we're running out of time. So the first session was 25 trainers. Second session was 75 teachers and teaching staff. The third was 250 what they call professional development coordinators. Of all of that group, of all the 350, less than 20% were Google certified. So as I said, they were kind of a Google environment. I'm going to jump through a couple of these because I really want to get to this format. So the format became showing them the objectives of the session, introducing them to the concept of, in our K-12 world, we call them entry tickets and an exit ticket. And they love these. These are very simple things to do. You can do them through Google Forms or whatever technology. Sorry, I have to jump through some of this because I want to get to some of the survey results. So there was a pre-training survey. There was a post-training survey that was completed, I think, about a month or two ago. They had 149 respondents, relatively confident in the training that I provided for them, and it was delivered in 2 different languages for them as well. The upshot of all this is the recognition that they need to change some of the technology that they deliver now that they're becoming more comfortable with technology. The one thing they've been able to do is install smart TVs. Before this, they had cable television, as I said, cable television broadcast to some of the classrooms. Now they've been able to invest in smart TVs, which allow them a lot more interactive aspects. I'm going to jump to the end here. Assistive technology is very important there to deal with inclusion and disability. So they're working on a particular software that's going to deal with that and look at some of the advantages of taking their content and delivering it in their own native language as well. Sorry, I feel like I've kind of rushed through a little bit. It was a lot. It's a major, quite a large project, but that essentially is what we want to cover today. Any questions? If not, there's a small window between me and drinks downstairs, so you can catch me downstairs if you like.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Actually, let us thinking and dreaming of these wonderful beaches.